expressed on this program are the views of the host and not necessarily the views of the University of Missouri St. Louis or this station.
Hey everyone, it is that time. It is top of the hour, 1 p.m. First of all, I do want to say a quick apology for the technical difficulties that we have had in the studio.
Yeah, we're limited with the technology.
Yeah, it's been a experimental day today, so we do apologize for that. But we're going to go ahead and continue with the show. The show must go on. So like I was saying earlier, our topic of the day, How America Treats Its Citizens, Part 4, is all about economic hitmen, false flag operations, and war, which is the ultimate recipe for empire building. So without further ado, like I was saying earlier, it is going to be an eye-opener. You will want to stay tuned because we are going to present the facts to you. So without further ado, my co-host, OG Bobcat, will go
that
ahead
is me,
and
the Lord of the airwaves.
So he just cut me off. But anyway, he going to go ahead and spit it to you. So pay attention.
Well, first of all, good evening, everybody. Well, better yet, I'll say good afternoon. Anyway, now, this is the final installment about how the wealthy and the powerful of this country do damage to its citizens. Now, today's talk concerns how these same entities do damage across the globe as well. Now, centuries ago, when an empire wanted to expand its territory, this was done the old-fashioned way, with brute, bloody force. However, in the 20th century, starting in the 1950s, a new way of empire building, or imperialism American style, came in the fashion of combining the activities of economic hitmen, false flag operations, and war for profit. Now, to begin, let's quickly define these two terms, economic hitman and false flag operations. Now, the economic hitman is someone who is employed by large corporations, usually in this country, to pitch enormous loans, normally from organizations such as the World Bank, IMF, and USAID, to leaders of a strategic company that is vital to U.S. foreign policy. Now, what is a false flag operation? Listen very closely. Government, military, or other authorities that are involved in operations that are designed to purposely deceive the public in such a way that the operations appear to be carried out by someone else. So in layman's terms, when the government launches an attack against its own citizens or servicemen to fool an unsuspecting public into thinking that there's a real threat that exists when there really isn't one. That threat, for example, my esteemed host, could be a radical religious organization or an individual, whether here or abroad. You think you can think of any right off the bat?
From facts that I know, would be, for an example, the situation of 9/11, how that event it actually was carried out, but it wasn't, due to the blame wasn't because of Osama bin Laden. Let's put it that way.
Okay.
So go ahead and elaborate.
All right. Now, the military and intelligence agencies are used to promoting these operations with sophisticated lies that are repeated over and over to mislead and to maintain control over the masses. Now, they also represent an opportunity for huge profits to be made in the form of infrastructure building projects that will benefit only the wealthy and not the poor. However, it all starts with the activities of the economic hitman. Now, there's a book titled Confessions of an Economic Hitman, and it was published by a white man named John Perkins. And the reason why I say it was a white man, because usually such literature would be usually written by, a white person. And usually a lot of people think that only white people would, tell the truth about such things. So there you have it. Now, his book shows that how he and others are recruited by agencies such as EHMs, represent a cash windfall for one entity and an instrument of crippling debt for the other. Now, this process if you don't mind me saying, is a double-edged sword with very ugly details. Are you ready for them?
Yeah, we ready. Go ahead.
Okay. Now, let's say the leader of said country refuses to accept this loan, which, by the way, will never be repaid because their economy is ill-equipped to handle such burden. Well, what happens after that? Now, this is according to John Perkins in his book, is that what happens at that point is when a CIA trained individual known as a jackal is used to bring the targeted leader down with activities that are designed to inspire a violent overthrow of that government, and subsequently that leader or the jackal tries to outright assassinate the leader. Yes, you heard it right. A CIA trained person is used to kill a foreign leader for immoral and unjust reasons. Now, if by chance the plot to kill that leader fails, and think of Castro avoiding the invasion of the Bay of Pigs scenario as ordered by JFK, back long time ago, this country's political and government leaders will then initiate a smear campaign of that leader with accusations ranging from a drug runner, Noriega, to communist human rights violator, Castro, as we mentioned, to worldwide terrorist, bin Laden, and to evil madman with dangerous weapons, Saddam Hussein. Now, this is achieved through the corporate controlled media, and the purpose of all of this is to brainwash the American public into seeing this individual or these individuals as threats, not only to the faithful here, but to so-called democracy worldwide. And yes, it gets worse, goes from bad to worse. And I'm just only the bearer of the bad news, so don't get angry at me. Now, this is when the false flag operation comes into play. Think the events of 9/11, as our esteemed host had said. Now, remember, this is an operation that's staged to make the public think someone else is guilty of unspeakable deaths. Now, this particular act of terrorism,
with quotes, terrorism,
has been alleged to be conducted by persons in secret with the leaders of this country's knowledge, as opposed to what we've always been shown on the TV screen all these years. Now, this was necessary, for the justification for going to war. Now, remember the lies that we were told about the weapons of mass destruction? Yes, I'm pretty sure everybody remembers that. You remember that, DJ Nana?
Yes, I do remember.
Now remember, that was attached to this act of terrorism that was repeated over and over. Mm-hmm. And we all remember that. Mm-hmm. And what made it all the more acceptable was that the government played on the vulnerable emotions of a grieving, outraged American public.
Right.
And remember who got the blame?
Yep.
Okay, and for our listening audience out there, one hint. His royal family helped the Bush family of this country become an extra wealthy elite family. So I'll let you take a guess as to who that was. Anyway, in rapid succession, our soldiers were then used like pawns on the chessboard to fight a war which resulted in widespread destruction of a country that never did a thing to us. This country, Iraq. And so afterwards, the rebuilding of Iraq led to, or within the rebuilding of it, I'll say, led to numerous very lucrative no-bid contracts. Now, one of these companies is called Halliburton. Now, they had brought in $39.5 billion as a result of the help of former CEO and former Vice President Dick Cheney. Yes, this scoundrel helped to orchestrate this immoral usage of your taxpayer money, Americans. This was your taxpayer money. And as a result of these barbaric, inhumane atrocities, these poor, innocent Iraqi citizens lost women, children, and husbands. And likewise, our gullible, misled soldiers had died because of greedy, unscrupulous businessmen and politicians. And this is truly a shame.
Truly a shame.
Now, mind you, this is what happens when the leader of a country does not accept the loan.
Dang, so what happens if they do accept the loan?
Okay. Well, all right. And there's an answer for that. Now, when the leader does accept this loan, 90% of the money is then funneled to huge corporations and to the pockets of a few wealthy families that control most of the planet's resources. The money will then be used to fund the construction of infrastructure projects that will benefit only the leader, his family, and to provide usefulness to amenities such as luxury hotels and resorts. But that's just for example. Meanwhile, the poor in the remote rural areas or overcrowded urban areas will continue to live in squalor, meaning they will live in very wretched conditions. Now, if these loans cannot be repaid, and more than likely they won't, it's a debt that, however, can be repaid in at least three ways. Number one, the creation of a U.S. military base, which in turn leads to troops stationed in these countries to possibly be involved in such things as sexual assaults and prostitution of the local females, which I have heard over the years of such activities. Number two.
Wait. You've heard where? Like through the grapevine or
no.
Where?
Well, these have always been reported on the airwaves. So it's no secret that this has happened, and I just tried to mention in quick, from what I've always heard, but I can say that, I do my research as usual, and these are issues that have been reported. They just get underreported when it comes to the general public knowing about these things.
Okay, I just wanted to, clear that up for the listening audience. So go ahead.
Okay. And number two, how these loans can be repaid is through the U.S. obtaining UN votes that would help U.S. foreign policy. And number three, access to natural resources such as, yes, you guessed it, oil. So in a summary, these situations that I have submitted to you, I am firmly convinced or categorically the answer as to how two things: third world countries stay in debt, but more importantly, how the U.S. established and maintains its quote unquote empire. Now, common folk here in the U.S., for example, mistakenly think that these leaders squander their country's money because of sheer incompetence. Well, there's hurts and then there's not so. And this is because this country purposely helps to keep these foreign countries in a state of economic chaos. Now, the poverty aspect that remains intact is then exploited as this country and other Western countries, what they do is they conspire to split up certain native groups in these countries against one another. For example, arms, resources, and favorable treatment are given to one group at the expense of the other. This is the basis for deep-seated animosity between rival groups and or ethnicities. This is the reason rebel forces are always engaged in armed conflict with the ruling party that we here in this country constantly hear about in the news. Now, for example, the movie Hotel Rwanda, and myself and the host, we've been privileged to watch this movie a number of times, and this is a good example how the end results play out. And I would ask and beg everyone to watch that movie. It has a lot of, graphic scenes or what have you, yet it's still worth watching to help prove the point of what I've just said. But then again, or better yet, so now there you have it. Now, if you didn't know before, now you officially know who the enemy is and how they operate. Got any questions for me, DJ?
Well, I'm, severely appalled by it all, as a lot of the listening audience may be.
Should be.
Like OG Bobcat had mentioned, he is well researched. He does his research and he knows what's being broadcast on the news and all that. So, we only come to you with facts, and we encourage you, like always, to do your own research. But I do want to ask a question as far as, so you have mentioned all of the issues of how America, really operates. So as far as the solution, because we don't want to just give the problem and don't give a solution. So what is a possible solution that you can give to the listening audience to not fall victim to all of this?
Well, if nothing else, it's supremely necessary to be educated about these actions of the wealthy and powerful, so that if nothing else, number one, the public cannot be duped into supporting unjust, unnecessary wars that bring only misery to the poor and the powerless, while expanding the power of the already powerful. And I would have to say that the second suggestion that I would offer is that you write to your congressmen, your senators, and have them to introduce legislature that would some way, somehow be able to curtail these actions. Then again, I know that's like ice skating uphill, because in this country, especially, in Washington, money talks. So I guess if nothing else, the common man and woman would have to marshal their resources, as I said last Tuesday, that maybe perhaps we could then hire some lobbyists and ensure that certain laws, get enacted, so certain situations like this can be at the minimum curtailed.
Right. Okay. All right. So that's some really, really good advice, that he gave. And like I said, we always encourage for you to take our advice, because we're, only here out of concern. We're trying to, let you all aware of what really goes on, so you all won't fall victim to it. So, take heed. I do want to mention that if you would like to go over what was talked about today, you can go on to youtube.com and search for Deanna Monroe, or you can search on youtube.com The Monroe Show, and say, by the end of this week, the video, the rebroadcast of what was talked about today should be uploaded. So like I say, you can either go to, youtube.com, The Monroe Show, or Deanna Monroe. And also you can go to facebook.com and search for my page, The Monroe Show. Also on there, in the videos by the end of this week will be uploaded. So anytime you want to hear what was talked about, if you want to listen over again, you can always go to those.